Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. This is Tarafdar, back with a brand new video. Today I want to talk about a couple things to you and essentially bring you up to speed on some of the things with the credit bureaus, some of the things with credit repair in general, the industry, how it's shifted, and where we're all headed. More importantly, let's talk about some of the points which we need to cover on today's topic. One of the cooler things about credit repair is that you have the ability to control the outcome if you know exactly what you have to do. So let's discuss on some of the options that you guys need to exercise as you're starting to get into your credit repair journey. Most of you guys are already familiar with the PI minimizer technique, and most of you have exercised that and you haven't gotten the outcomes. So let's talk about some of the strategies that you would have deployed, and perhaps those strategies that weren't working, and what are some of the immediate things that you need to do in order to shift that gear, and which area you need to concentrate on to get the optimal results. The first thing I want to start with is look at PI minimizer technique. What exactly are you referencing in your document? How are you starting that process? And what specifically are you saying when you're executing that? Right? So a good example of this is if you're starting with the PI minimizer technique and you're essentially collecting a series of data that the credit bureaus have about you. Maybe it's 15 different names, 12 different addresses, 13 different SSNs, whatever the type of personal information it is. When you're going ahead and you're trying to collect that, and you're putting it on a piece of paper, you have to understand how to, guide the credit bureaus on either fixing that, removing it, or perhaps even making the adjustment that's necessary. So a lot of people, what happens is, when they start by listing out all sorts of stuff, what they say is, hey, look, I want you guys to, delete this, right? I want you guys to remove this information. I want you guys to correct this data. The objective is, it's not just about that. You have to go a little bit up and beyond. You have to say, I want you to remove this information because, and then be more specific. The more specific you are, the better you're going to create when it comes to outcomes, right? So that's one of those things when it comes to credit repair that you really, really have to get comfortable around. And it's not just a perspective of just leaving it blank and just essentially telling them, hey, you need to fix this and remove this immediately. Rather, you have to give a reason as to why that needs to be removed. You have to give a reason as to why this information needs to be taken out of your credit reports. And if that is not taken out of the credit reports, what is the detrimental problem that's going to persist if those negative items still stay? So start with that, right? So with the PI minimizer technique, list out the information that needs to be removed. But as you list those negative information out, you need to clarify as to why those negative items have to go, why those negative items cannot stay. So for instance, let's say you have a series of personal names that are just listed, and we know that there's mistakes there, and we know that that information cannot stay, and that's just erroneous, right? Based on that information, what you guys need to do is you got to say, look, the reason as to why that information cannot stay, it's because A, that is not my actual name, and B, the information whoever submitted that have done so in error. I strongly believe that that needs to be adjusted or corrected, or perhaps the account that is affiliated with this name may mistakenly be reported, specifically given that it's not compliant. Now, sometimes the bad news about that is if you say it like this, they can come back and say, here's a negative account, here's why it belongs to you, and so on and so forth. But the beautiful thing is there's a dialogue that happened. You started that process, and the credit bureaus are starting to see that you're asking for specific instructions on what to do with the file. So my goal with you guys, and trying to help you basically articulate a dispute or a challenge game plan, is to be specific, right? We talked about that. Common sense, be more specific. Now, that's the PI minimizer technique. Let's talk about some negative items. You guys have a whole list of negative items, perhaps. You can have collection agency, charge-offs, you can have late payments, whatever the case. What you need to do is, what you need to articulate in those negative items is, here's a reason why this negative item is incorrect. And then you list that out. And you say it's incorrect because A, B, C, and D. Now, if you don't list that out, and if you don't go ahead and explain to them why those negative items need to be removed, they may potentially stay. They may say, no, this item belongs to you, and here's why we believe this item belongs to you. So the more specific, like I said, you are, the better you're going to be when it comes to getting those results, the better you're going to have in terms of outcomes. But if you're not specific, what's going to happen is you're going to leave that in the blank, and you might not get the outcomes that you're looking for. So, for example, let's talk about collections, right? So if you start to put that information on that letter or document, and you're trying to dispute that collection agency or that account off, and you said, you've attempted multiple times in the past, and they came back verified, and they said, no, this item belongs to you. What you need to do is you need to concentrate on essentially listing out the information And then you need to concentrate on saying as to why that account can no longer be justifiably staying there. A good example of this is, well, the information is incomplete, right? When information is incomplete, the right to report is disqualified. Therefore, the item can no longer remain until such time the information is submitted in an accurate format. So that is one of the other reasons that you have to remove this negative account. So even if they come back verified, you have to come back to them and reply to that answer, even though it's unsatisfactory and it's probably not something that you're looking forward to. You have to take it the ball is in your court. It's up to you to tactfully and strategically respond to that claim that, hey, look, this item is verified and here's why. It's your duty to go ahead and say, well, look, sure, it's verified, but here's the problem. The verification that you're talking about, it's not proper, right? Number one, the item itself reporting is incomplete. There's nothing that is compliant to the Fair Credit Reporting Act standards of reporting. That's number one, why it has to be removed. Number two, certain levels of information are missing. An account being incomplete, let alone inaccurate, doesn't have the right to report, because you have a duty as a credit bureau to maintain reasonable accuracy. And if you can see that information is missing, in common logic and sense, a reasonable accuracy means this item itself cannot be qualified to even stay on the credit reports. So we're not disputing or challenging whether it belongs to me or not. That is not the case. However, the information itself is inaccurate. Number one, it's not complete. And number three, there's a couple of things that I just explained to you guys as to why, regardless of validity or not, information incomplete doesn't have the right to be reported. So that's another way that you guys could go ahead and challenge that and tackle that. Now let's look at some late payments, right? So I'm dropping you some of the knowledges from the past and I'm just kind of merging them into this video for you guys. But let's assume that we're looking at late payments now, right? So late payments are a complex animal. A lot of people try goodwill letters and then they send those documents and they hope for the best. They hope that the credit bureaus will comply and somehow they'll adjust those late payments and do it as paid as agreed. The goal of late payments is you need to challenge it based on factual accuracy. And what I mean by that is, hey, look, a lot of people say they have accounts that are late, and you can challenge that with the credit bureaus, and you can say to them that, listen, I'm not disputing the account itself. However, what I am requesting is that you modify the statement that it is late for two reasons. Number one, there is no justifiable reason as to why it should be late. And number two, how can I be certain that what they're stating that it was 30 or 60 or 90, how am I sure that this is the exact days, right? What if it's misleading? What if it's not true? Right? That's on the creditor. The creditor has to notify you guys, and the creditor has to notify me that the information itself, is a certain amount of days late. I was never notified of this information, and this is something what we call an adverse action. Adverse action, when I explained to you guys in the past when we talked about credit reporting, and I showed you guys, in one of the live streams that we did, an adverse action is when a creditor or a person like a debt collector decides to post information that is potentially injurious to your credit score, which is a negative item in this case. There's a dual duty from creditors and even people like collection agencies or companies like collection agencies. They have a fiduciary duty and a credit reporting duty under the Fair Credit Reporting Act to notify you. Whenever a negative item is being posted on your credit report, they have to notify you that, hey, we're putting some negative information on your credit report and here is exactly why. The notice cannot be left empty by just saying, hey, we're posting a negative item. It has to be explicitly clear as to why that negative item is being reported. But also they have to tell you that they are doing so in a manner that is complete, timely, and 100% accurate. In most cases, all of those elements, if not one, is pretty much missing, or perhaps two or more elements of exactly what I stated to you guys is missing. So you already have some of the tools right there and then to go ahead and challenge those guys based on that information and set of documents, right? So when you're preparing your next campaign for credit repair, even though items have come back verified, and even though you've been trying to go back and forth with these guys for the credit bureaus, whichever credit bureau it is, I want you guys to think of it in that different angle, right? I want you guys to start tackling your negative items based on the strategy that I just laid out for you guys, because probably that is going to be the best outcomes that you'll create, specifically given the strategies about being more specific, providing reasoning behind why those negative accounts cannot stay on, providing reasoning as to why those personal identifiers cannot stay on, and also explaining to them, look, continuously doing so, continuously being non-compliant, continuously refusing to make these adjustments will result in financial penalties that nobody has the time to go to court to collect. I'm pretty sure you guys don't want to waste money. I don't want to waste money. Let's amicably resolve this, as it is your duty under the Fair Credit Reporting Act to do so. So the more specific, with logical reasoning with prospective penalties for not complying, if you lay that out the proper way, and that includes every single item, right? You don't lay out the whole thing with a bunch of items and then at the end say that for every single item. Here's why the negative item, first of all, this is the negative item. Here's why it cannot stay. Here's why it has to be removed. Here's the reason as to why it needs to go. And if it continues to report, here are some of the severity and the penalties for non-compliance. I'm strongly encouraging you guys to fix this. Next item, same process, same layout, same breakdown. So if you do this way, what ends up happening is now your documents may be a little bit bigger, but they're very thorough. And this is a way to have stacking of evidence, documentary evidence, that shows your attempt to resolve the matter, your attempt in an amicable way to fix the issue. You already have what we call a private right of action. What is a private right of action? That is basically you've attempted with the bureaus based on logical reasoning to try and explain to them as to why some of the negative items, some of the personal identifiers cannot stay. Their refusal to comply or make those adjustments or listen to you can lead to a lawsuit, because now you have the private right of action. You've already talked to them, you've already given them a fair warning, and now you can go ahead and sue them if you have to. So I hope this video gave you guys some insights on the logical sequence of doing credit repair, on a very common sense approach. And hopefully this gives you some insights on the next few steps to take when it comes to fixing your personal credit. And with that said, I know it's been a while, so I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to smash that thumbs up button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, as more videos will be coming up soon, I promise. And of course, if you're looking to enhance your personal credit knowledge, understand some of the game-changing methods and mechanisms of fixing your personal credit, this is the place to be. And with that said, this is definitely your guide and mentor, Ali Tarafdar. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye for now.